you hear me? Hi. You need to connect to audio. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Can you hear me? You're muted. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second. I can't get my speakers to work.
Okay.
Let me try it on my phone. Hold on. I'll be right back.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now. Hold on.
Okay. This interview is for me to get more information about restaurants during coronavirus. If you don't mind, I'll record this so I can transcribe it later. The recording will be deleted right after I'm done with transcribing it.
Yeah, that's fine. You can use whatever you need. Whatever you need to use.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
I'm currently writing an article to compete for my article to be published in Times for Kids. And if you're ready, let's move on to the questions.
Go right ahead. Thank you.
Okay. So the first one is, which restaurant do you work at, and what is the name of it, and where is it at?
So I manage 2 restaurants. So we have a small company. So it's 2 restaurants. So the first restaurant is called The Federal. It's Federal. So that's in Waltham. They're both in Waltham. So that one's in Waltham, right off of Route 95, right by it's the Clark's Building and Market Basket. So it's in that plaza, and that's a steakhouse. It's a prime steakhouse. And then the other restaurant we just opened up. Unfortunately, we opened up right before we had to shut down. So it was our new restaurant. So that was in Waltham. It's on Moody Street, and that one's called Stazione di Federal. So it's Stazione Di, 2 words, Stazione di Federal, and then it's just like the first Federal. So that one's Italian. So we just opened that one up. We opened it the first week of March. So that was too bad.
So what do you do at the restaurant?
So I manage both. So I work for two gentlemen. So they're our owners. So their names are Richard Brackett and David Alphonse. So they are both lifelong Boston area restaurateurs. So you can look up both of them. They both have a really very extensive history in restaurants. So they're 2 very, very well known, very smart men. And these 2 restaurants. So the Federal was their first restaurant. So they're good friends. They grew up together. So they they opened the Federal together, and then I went to work for them as a manager, and then we opened the second restaurant. So what I do is, for the second restaurant, I did all of the hiring. I do all of the systems, including what we'll talk about as far as now I've been working on the COVID-19 systems, which we never thought we would have to use. You know, it's funny how life works like that. But so we have So basically, I manage the restaurant. I manage the front of house staff, which is the bartenders and servers and bussers and host stand. And I write the schedules and I do all the training and I help out with the dining room when we're open and so on.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Is the restaurant still open during COVID-19?
Yes. So what we did was, so the Federal is about a year and a half old. So, and Stazione was only like a month old. We'd been working on it for a couple years, and then it was only open for a couple weeks before we originally had to shut down on March 18th or March 16th. So March 16th was the day that it was a Monday, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was a Monday. So we had to shut down both restaurants, Governor Baker. So the 16th would have been our last day open, March 16th. So then we shut down Monday the 16th instead of opening both restaurants. So we closed, and what we did was we closed temporarily because nobody knew what was going on. So what we did was we decided to take all of the food that was perishable and we distributed it to all of our employees. We thought that that was the right thing to do because we didn't know how bad the virus was going to be or how long we would have to close or even if we could do takeaway. So when we first closed, we had everyone come in with their families, whoever, and we distributed all the food, whatever people needed, supplies, toilet paper, gloves, masks, all that. And then we did reopen, I think the following week, we were allowed to do takeaway service. It might have been 2 weeks. Either way, as soon as we could, we opened back up for takeaway at both restaurants. Unfortunately, we decided last week to stop doing it at Stazione because it was so new and we were having to open and run 2 restaurants. So we decided to just consolidate down to 1 restaurant. So now we have a combination menu at the Federal, which we still are doing. We're doing takeaway Tuesday through Saturday. So we're still doing takeaway out of the Federal right now while we're waiting to open back up.
Okay. For the restaurant that is still open, is it still open and closed at the same time?
No, so it's very different now because when we were open as a regular restaurant, we were open 7 days a week and we would do lunch Monday through Friday, and then we would do dinner every night. So we rely on people dining in for lunch. So we had to change a lot of what we did. We had to change a lot of our menu. We had to change, unfortunately, we can't really have any employees at the time. We've started to have some employees now, but that was the hardest part is because people have to stay home and people have to be safe. So myself and another manager and the 2 owners have basically been doing all the work. So we've been open, the new hours we're open just for dinner time, Tuesday through Saturday. So it's like 4 to 8 o'clock. And,
okay.
Yeah.
So I heard from a Chinese restaurant that the raw material has increased in price, but the prices on the menu are still the same. Does your restaurant have the same problem?
So we have a lot of our menu is steak. So beef prices are going up. So what we did was instead of having to, because we like to keep our prices affordable. We're not trying to be a super expensive restaurant, but we did have prime steak. So the classifications of steak, there's prime, and then there's choice, and then there's select, and then there's everything else. So typically we had prime steak. So we instead just went down 1 level to choice. So choice is, hold on, let me just make sure I'm telling you the right thing. So, but choice, I want to make sure I didn't mix them up. Yeah, okay. So USDA Prime is what we usually have, and then we switched to USDA Choice, and then we actually lowered some of our prices. So that way, because we knew people were going to be getting takeaway instead of coming in and eating in the restaurant. So when you actually can come in and sit down and have the nice meal and the service and the wine, people want the prime steak. So what we wanted to do is not raise our prices, and the beef did get more expensive. So the price of choice beef is not the same as prime, but it did go up as well. So we just went down one grade of the meat, which is still really good quality, but we didn't want to have to charge people, $50 for a steak that you're going to get takeaway and then bring home, So that's how we worked around it. But yeah, that is affecting us as far as the meat. But as far as the produce goes, there's been a lot of interesting programs. So while meat has been scarce, produce has been abundant. So there's a lot of we work with a lot of different companies, a lot of different purveyors. So one is called Cats de Rubis, and they're you've probably seen the trucks. They're big green trucks. They're driving all around Boston. So they, as well as other companies, Williams and Co. is another company that does stuff. Sid Wainer is another one. They work with a lot of local farms and vegetable growers. So what they did was they have an abundance of vegetables because all of a sudden overnight, every restaurant in Massachusetts just stopped ordering food because nobody knew what to do. So what they did was they did these awesome programs where they would take like a big box and they would fill it with all different produce. So they would have all different vegetables, and they would offer it up to restaurants at a discounted rate. So it would be like $25 for like a huge box, and you'd get like all these different fresh vegetables and fruits. So while the beef prices and meat prices are going up a little bit, all the produce is going down a little bit, and they're trying to help people because produce has it's a limited shelf life.
Yeah.
So it's been both ways.
Okay. Is the preparation process for the food the same? Does the government require like extra cleaning or extra protection?
So in the restaurant, there's different programs, especially when you're managers, and we have a kitchen run by chefs. So where I'm a front of house manager and I have my two general managers, we have the head chef and then we have the sous chefs. So they've been doing all the work as well. So we're a very clean restaurant. We're inspected all the time. So what's the good part of all this is we're all very well trained. And so our process is the same because we're a very sanitary restaurant. Everybody always wears gloves. There's sanitizer everywhere. Excuse me. But so what we did, we have more of everything. But everything we go through programs. It's called Serve Safe, or Safe Serve. There's a couple different programs. So they're basically training programs like school, and that we all go to it and we learn how to handle food safely. So if anything, it's more safe now because we're preparing less food and we have more chefs involved than normal. So we have all these very highly trained people preparing the food. So we definitely have a heightened focus on sanitation and everything. But we always prided ourselves on having a very clean restaurant. So.
I also heard from the Chinese restaurant that before coronavirus there were more workers, but now there aren't as many. For example, like they used to have 4 cooks, but now they only have 2.
Yeah.
Do you know, is it the same case for your restaurant?
Yeah. So like I was saying, so before I would have so our restaurant, we didn't even do takeaway. So before we were only a sit down restaurant. Even if you came into the restaurant, we didn't do takeaway because we were the way that chef creates our food, it has to be on a plate, and he makes it look very pretty and very nice. So we had to completely change everything. So we didn't have takeaway people. Like I'm the takeaway person now. So unfortunately, we had to furlough the majority of our employees. So we probably went from let's say like a Saturday night, I would have 9 servers and I would have 3 bartenders, and then I would have 2 food runners. So that's 15 people right there. And then I would have 3 hosts. So that's 18 people. And then I would have 3 bussers. So that's 21 people. So I would have on a Saturday night, 21 people just in the front of the house of the restaurant. So it's front of house and back of house. So the back of the house, if I'm saying that, back of house is the kitchen and front of house is the dining room part. So I would have, 21 front of house people and then myself and my other manager. And now we just have, I'll go in at 3:00 and it's me and one person and for front of house. So, and then in the back, it's 2 chefs and then 1 hourly employee. So it's considerably down. It's because we would have five line cooks, we would have 2 dishwashers, we would have 2 salad people, we would have a dessert person, we would have a person baking bread and rolls throughout the whole shift. So we've cut our employees down to basically 5%. So fortunately, the state and the country, I feel like, did a good job with unemployment benefits. So we're worried about our employees, but as long as everybody's safe and they're getting unemployment, then that's good. So we're mostly just doing it ourselves. So we basically just have like 6 people working on a shift now.
Okay. I heard that the government was giving out money. Did you receive it?
So we had the federal, and it's very complicated because from the very top, different banks need to be certified for different loans. So the bank that we dealt with primarily had to get qualified on the fly. So they weren't originally qualified for these types of loans. I think it's the SPA loan. I don't remember exactly because there's so many different ones, but so I know that my owner Richard had a lot of trouble going through the state and his bank, and but I do know that we did receive one of the assistance loans for the federal. Unfortunately, and this is a common problem which we're actively trying to fix right now, the Stazione restaurant was so new that we didn't qualify for anything. So while the federal we did qualify for some, I don't know that we got all of the ones that we qualified for, but Stazione didn't qualify at all. So that was a big hit. That was unfortunate. So Richard, my owner, has been actively trying to try to get legislature passed through to help restaurants like that, because we're not the only restaurant in the country. Like there's plenty of restaurants that just opened, and now it's just like, well, sorry, you're too new. So that's been a big problem. But
do you think the loan you got helped, or was it still not enough?
I don't think it was enough. I don't think I think so. Originally, the loan said, so it was a forgiveness loan. So if you used, I think it was like 75 or 80% of it to pay your employees, that it would be forgiven, meaning we don't have to pay it back. Unfortunately, that stipulation expires, I think it's the beginning of June. So it's not possible for us in the lockdown to pay our employees because we can't have them there, and you can't be a server or a bartender from home. So that's or a cook. So that's most of our employees, because there's no way we can even bring them back. So then we would have this loan, and then we would be responsible for paying it all back, because there wasn't, the way it was originally written, there was no way for us to actually use the loan that we did get approved for. So it just shows how different and new this all is.
So when I am writing this article, what do you want me to tell the readers that might help your restaurant and the other restaurants?
Could you say that one more time?
When I am writing this article, what do you want me to tell the readers that might help you and the restaurant?
Well, I think that the biggest thing so hopefully right now our date of return is tentatively June 8th. We've been hearing that it might be later than that. It's all dependent on the percentage of positive tests in Massachusetts. So if there's any sort of little bump, then phase 1 might be expanded. So we're part of phase 2. So the earliest phase 2 can start is June 8th. So what I would ask is that people be understanding, and we have states opening up around us right now, and nobody really knows what's going to happen, and there's a lot of information and there's a lot of misinformation out there, so people don't know what to believe. So some people don't even think that this is real, which is silly. It's very real. And we have people that we know that are affected by it, and so I would love that people practice social distancing, people be understanding, people understand that this isn't going to be like it used to be. Like, you could come in and you could sit down with your family for 2 hours, and you could order drinks and sit, and then order food and then sit, and then unfortunately it's going to be a different process now, because we're going to be opening at, we hope, 50% capacity. So we'll have every other table. As we're watching other states do it, we're seeing what is working and what is not working. So that's kind of an advantage for us. So I would ask that people be understanding, and we're going to be, it's going to be different. It's going to be, you're going to be waiting outside. You're going to have to wait in line. You're going to have to get your temperature taken at the front door before you can enter. A lot of states, the temperature is 100.4. So we don't have Massachusetts mark yet. We'll have to do what Massachusetts says as far as what temperature is acceptable. But so that's different. That's weird. We're used to people just, you can't come in and sit at the bar. You can't come in and sit in the lounge. Like a lot of people, you'd be able to just walk right in and sit down. So unfortunately now it's going to be a long line, and we're going to have people come in, and then we might have to do time limits on tables. We might have to do reservations only. There's going to be times where somebody has 101 fever and it's a group of 4 people. And unfortunately, we're going to have to turn all those people away because we need to by law. So I would just hope that people can be patient, and I hope that people can understand that we're doing the best that we can, while also trying to keep everybody as safe as humanly possible.
Okay. So those are all my questions. Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, no problem. And if you have any more questions, don't hesitate. My email is Eric, ERIC, and it's at the-federalrestaurant.com. So if you have any other questions, if you're writing it and you think of a good question, just email me, just so I don't miss it. So
thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. Say hi to your mom for me. Bye.
Bye.